Fantastic, James. Absolutely spot on. A great trip to the States there for James. He's come back fired up. It's fantastic. Well done, mate. That was really, really good. Radical proponents of gender ideology have upped the ante in recent months, silencing anyone and everyone who dares to question their agenda. Philosophy lecturer Holly Lawford-Smith is one person who has been reaping abhorrent repercussions from her teaching material, and she joins us now. Holly, great to see you as always. Thanks for coming back on Outsiders. The last few weeks has not been great for you. Just tell us briefly what you've had to put up with at university.
So on Friday, the feminism intensive wrapped up. So it's been running for 3 weeks. I guess that shouldn't be newsworthy that a course at the University of Melbourne has finished, but people have been paying some attention to it for the reason that in all of semester 1, there was a kind of activist campaign encouraging students to boycott the course. Then in the week before the course started, there was some serious vandalism of the university campus relating to the activist campaign, or at least we think so. And then the university response to that was to put security on the course for its duration. So I've just been sort of teaching for 3 weeks with a security presence outside the front of the tutorial rooms and escorting me back to my office after class, which is a pretty odd situation to be teaching in, yeah.
So, Holly, just tell us, I'd love to attend one of your classes, it'd be fantastic, and without giving the whole thing away, but just what is it about that you're teaching that so upsets the activist class? I guess it's the transgender militant activist class or something like that, or is it more broader than that?
Oh, that's what it is. I mean, it will be surprising, I guess, to many people, because feminism, I guess, is traditionally a subject that you might locate as one of the sort of left issues. So why are people so upset about that, and why is it leftists that are so upset about that? I think the view is that I'm teaching it in the wrong way. So my sort of framing of feminism as a philosophical, like a set of philosophical issues, is that this is a historical social movement relating to the subordination, exclusion, oppression, whatever you like, throughout history of female people. And this clashes greatly with the mainstream approach to feminism, which is really as a sort of movement about everyone's issues and for everyone, whose main value is inclusion. And I guess the real sticking point is the question of whether it should be about a particular group of men, namely men who identify as women. And in my course, we ask about whether sex should be replaced with gender identity for all purposes, and we work through a range of spaces and services where it might be, but we do approach that question critically. And I think there is a set of students who think you shouldn't even ask that question. Trans women's inclusion as women and in feminism should just be absolutely taken for granted. So the fact that I'm having the discussion is seen as offensive or transphobic or controversial,
Liz,
or whatever you like.
Well, feminism has long been, basically a darling of the left. What do you find amongst your own students? Obviously, a lot of people who would be attracted to that kind of topic would probably lean left themselves. That's a generalisation, but one I think we can safely say. Do they themselves, the students themselves, do they find it objectionable that you're I guess, poking the bear at this new philosophy that is now deemed unquestionable, and you're in big trouble if you do pose a question mark to it?
It's really hard for me to say, because I think there's so much selection going on in who's willing to take the course. So in previous years, when there hasn't been so much publicity around it, I think students just come in, we talk about women, and they just sort of plug into that whatever they think they mean by it. So they'll be disagreeing, but it won't really be explicit. Some of them will mean female people, some of them will have a more expansive concept, but it's not really at issue. But I think this year, because there was so much publicity and hostility, I think I ended up attracting a lot of students with a backbone, right? Who are whoa, if this is not allowed, I'm going to jump in and study it. So I had a great experience this time round. I mean, I always do, but this time I think people were really up for it. Yeah.
Fantastic. James?
Well, I just want to ask, when you take it out of the classroom and into the sort of the real world, for lack of a better word, not to say that the academic world isn't also the real world, but you get these, all sorts of cases around locker rooms, change rooms, toilet facilities and things like this, where the feminist ideal of protecting women and having spaces for women runs smack bang against the ideology around transgenderism. Do you think that these sorts of cases are really where the actual fight will wind up being fought legally and in the culture? And just I'd love to get some of your thoughts as an academic who studies this sort of stuff more deeply than just the headlines about how these issues are playing out more broadly.
No, I think that's absolutely right. I think the big conflict and that kind of we're trying to take it up in academia, but it's really from the public and it's showing up everywhere, is this move to sex self-identification and then the kinds of problems that creates in a huge range of spaces. So the ones that always get attention, I think, are things like sports, and maybe bathrooms get a lot of attention for some reason, but there's like so much to talk about. For example, prisons, we don't hear that much about, but that's a huge issue, whether you're going to let male sex offenders or male criminals enter into the female prison estate. So again, in the class, we just have this huge list of I think it must be 20 or 30 spaces, services, international law, domestic policy, where stuff has been designed to protect female people's interests or privacy or dignity or safety or fairness or whatever else, and where problems and conflicts of interest are created by just letting any male person who says he identifies as a woman into those spaces. So I think you're absolutely right that that's where the conflict is and will be.